But each of these individuals were not necessarily born into privilege. They were not necessarily part of a world power that controlled the supply chain. They weren't necessarily in big companies. In fact, in every instance, they weren't. What they had was access to an opportunity, a mechanism that allowed them to innovate that was a very low energy barrier. It's called a laptop and an internet connection. That was their barrier between an idea and a product. And maybe more significantly, the energy barrier between that product and the market is almost non-existent. It's ankle deep. Each of these folks went from idea to a product to a marketplace in an extremely easy manner. You don't even need to learn how to code anymore. You can learn everything you need to do by picking up your favorite search engine, looking for, type the word education and whatever topic it is you want, and you will find videos, you will find any amount of documentation available to you to learn anything you want. That's why most of these guys aren't even, the businesses are starting in their dorm rooms, and they're significant before they finish their primary degree. Things have changed. Is it because that particular collection of individuals are more innovative than those of us in this room or than our kids? It's just not plausible. It's not reasonable to assume that. What's reasonable to assume is that for some reason it was much easier, and what's evident from the reality is that it's much easier to get that idea to a product and get that product to market if it is screen-centered, if it's screen-centered. So for the information technology industry, which is, last assessment I've seen out of City and Oxford is a $20 trillion annual business. It's not small. It's come from nothing in relatively recent times. It's huge and substantial, but it's screen-based. It's the screen business, and we don't live in screens. Actually, I'm not sure that's true. If I brought my son up here, I'm not sure that's entirely true of him. But we live in houses, we drive in cars, we eat food. We live in a physical world. We don't live in a screen world. So would it be interesting if we could take the ideas that make this easy and apply them to a physical world? If that were possible or reasonable to do, might that be an interesting revolution to engage in? I'll talk about that in a moment. How many of you are familiar with Y Combinator? It's a healthy spread. Those of you who didn't put your hands up, it's worth looking. It's worth looking at what they do. Since 2005, with a screening process that's about the individual, they pull in smart kids, early 20s, and they've invested in over 500 companies since 2005. And the net value of those companies is over 10 billion, 11.5 last I looked. A typical investment on their part is about $80,000 at the front end, and a typical business is worth over 20 million. So there's a process at play here. It's not random chance. There's something that they're doing that's allowing us to go from that idea to that product to that market. And these ideas are well understood. It's why our kids outperform us on tangibly moving ideas into something physical. My 12-year-old can code. Unfortunately, this is probably a reflection of me and my parenting skills, but pretty much everything he produces involves shooting at something and exploding something. But his idea of shooting and exploding something gets translated onto a screen with remarkable ease, and his ability to share that with his friends through social connection opportunities or to make that available to the planet is very, very low. Now, are most of those ideas... I'm being drowned out. There's a sign. Are most of those ideas great ideas? Of course not. There's a filtering process for those ideas. The market will accept some, they won't accept others. Y Combinator show us that there's a way of managing the tipping point, the number of those ideas that can get to market in a meaningful and tangible way. So there's some learnings there. But even if we go to pure chance, if the cost is close to zero, a laptop and a connection to the internet, if that's your cost, then what's the worst you're going to lose from having a shot at a screen-based business? It's a overdue credit card, maybe. The energy barrier's gone down. We need to learn from that. All of us need to be familiar with what happened in the last 10 years, why that was significant, and how to continue to leverage it. But that boat went. And the first movers on that, of course, were, we saw from Broer the spiky planet, and you saw some pretty substantial spikes in places like Silicon Valley and the Boston area that have been driving the bulk of these initiatives. But you saw, if you look carefully at this graph, a lot appearing around the planet generically and in the Far East specifically. The question I want to pose to you is, can we apply that digital economy learning and that go-to-market learning to the physical world? If you could do that, would that be interesting? Would that be useful? If every screen is currently intelligent, wouldn't it be interesting if everything was intelligent? Can you imagine if instead of me connecting from my laptop to your phone or from my tablet to your cloud service, that I could connect to your car, that I can connect to your trousers, pants for the American crew, that I can connect to my fridge, that I can connect to all the things around me? Would that result in some interesting business opportunities? Some interesting ways of making the planet a better place? I think the answer is fairly self-evident. If you could embed that intelligence, that's the first step. Now my screen access to other screens becomes screen access to all things. And the second piece is then bring those business models, those ankle-high barriers between an idea and a product, and ankle-high barriers between a product and the market, to bear on that world of things.